Welcome back to the podcast, you guys. Hope you're having an amazing day thus far, and it's going to get that much better once you hear this episode all about seed cycling. Okay, so if you listen to our episode on cycle syncing, this matched up with seed cycling is everything that you need to know and how to balance your hormones and feel your best throughout your menstruation of your 28-day cycle. So, this episode really starts back with the cycle syncing. So, if you haven't listened to that, highly encourage you to go listen to that first and then come back and listen to this one. It will make just that much more sense. Okay. So, without further ado, Julia is our guest today, and she created a company surrounding seed cycling based out of her own needs and her clients' needs. She is an incredibly knowledgeable woman and an expert in this field, I must say. I learned a ton, as you will, throughout this episode. She really breaks down all of the benefits between each of the seeds that we eat throughout the different stages of our cycle and what it does to our hormones, like tangibly. Does it get rid of acne? Yes, it can. Can it subdue some of the mood swings? Yes, it can. How long will it take to do all of those things? She shares it in the episode and so much more. Without further ado, Julia is the founder of Manski's Wellness, a woman-owned company, of course, providing natural and effective solutions to PMS and other menstruation problems. This company came to be through personal experience and extensive research by our founder, Julia. Manski's Wellness was created to empower women to keep things simple using the ingredients God gave us here on earth as medicine. Their seed cycling kits rotate seeds between the different phases of your cycle, and they have also a macronutrient bar that is high in protein for all women to feel good, knowing what they are putting in their body is actually supporting their health. They encourage us to use their resources to educate on how to support our hormones through food, which you can use to glow from the inside out. I can't wait for you to hear this episode and share your takeaways with us on social. Be sure to tag us both. And without further ado, the conversation with Julia begins right now. Julia, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here.
I am too. I thought it was pretty amazing how, you came across our episode on cycle syncing and you were like, hey, do you know about seed cycling?
Yeah, exactly. I saw on Haley's Instagram and I was like, oh my goodness, this podcast would be so amazing to talk with.
Yeah, and that's what this platform is all about. So, this episode is pretty much a continuation into the realm of women's health and hormones and really understanding, more of our period and how to support it and just us, in general. So, I didn't really understand seed cycling, and I still don't know a ton about it, but you created an entire company around it. And so I would love for you to break down, like, start us off a bit about yourself, okay? And what is seed cycling?
Okay, perfect. So, hi guys, my name is Julia. So I'm an integrative nutrition health coach and also have my bachelor's in nutrition dietetics. So I always loved the health and wellness space. Always grew up loving food and having a passion for nutrition. So kind of coming off of birth control in 2019, I was in college, and that's really what brought me more into the hormone health space. So, and that's also how I came across seed cycling. I battled with really awful irregular cycles, like really painful periods, irritability, breast tenderness, all the things. My period experience just wasn't so great. And when I started having clients on the side as well, I started to really understand that, first of all, talking about periods is very like taboo. Like not a lot of people do it. But when I started working kind of one-on-one with more people, I started noticing like everyone is experiencing very similar things, maybe in different ways, but the root issue is still hormonal problems, hormonal symptoms in some way. So that's really when I started to look into like food first approaches for hormone problems and started to realize how much nutrition played such a huge role in hormone health and how you go about your daily life, how you're feeling, all of those things. And nutrient deficiencies are actually one of the root causes of hormonal imbalances, and that's what's causing hormonal symptoms in women in all stages of life. So that was actually when I came across seed cycling. Was there were so many other things like ginger and a bunch of different types of like herb spices that are super beneficial for hormone health. But I also wanted to see like, what is there in terms of like food that I can just add on my food every single day to make it more simple. And I did come across seeds, and I'm pretty sure it was when I was reading Beyond the Pill by Dr. Jolene Brighton. That was like one of the first books I read, kind of birth control, and I found seed cycling. I was like, oh, this is so interesting. But at first, I was like, oh my goodness, this sounds very hard. Like, you're probably thinking, what is seed cycling? Like, what is your cycle? Just your period? Like, that's what I thought. And so there was this huge understanding that I had to kind of go over before I even started seed cycling. So without going too much into it real fast, basically seed cycling is just rotating different nutrients in specific phases of your menstrual cycle. So consuming flax and pumpkin basically in the first half of your cycle, and then sesame and sunflower seeds in the second half of your cycle. Basically, all throughout your menstrual cycle, you've 4 different phases. So again, real brief rundown. Basically, it's menstruation, follicular phase, ovulatory phase, and luteal phase. But in the first half of your cycle, estrogen is the main hormone. So you're consuming those certain seeds. And then the second half of your cycle, progesterone is the main hormone. So you're consuming a different seed blend, which is sesame and sunflower seeds. So basically, essentially, seed cycling's just supporting what your body is doing naturally, which is producing hormones and excreting excess hormones, which is really going to help promote the balance of both estrogen and progesterone to help have, better fertility, have better regular cycles, and have more, painless periods and less PMS, all of the above.
Mm. Yes, and because there's so much of our food that we're not absorbing
Yeah.
any of the minerals or the vitamins, and especially during our periods, like unlike men, where they don't have fluctuations of their hormones like we do, we
Mhm.
really need all of that that we can get to stabilize ourselves and really help, support us and where we're at.
Yeah, exactly. And so many people also ask, like with hormonal issues, like, well, how do I even know if I have a hormonal imbalance? Like that type of question. And, where's it even coming from? So, like I said, nutrient deficiencies are a big one, but a lot of the things that we go through in our daily life is causing it. And it's really hard to get away from it in today's society. It's really hard. So, like, stress is a big one. Even hormonal birth control is a big one. Poor liver function, that's the main detox organ. So, it can be really hard for people to excrete like waste hormones, excess hormones and toxins out of their body if their liver is not really being supported properly. So there's that function, and also just toxins and everywhere, like in our food and our plastic containers, like cosmetics, like things like that. So it's everywhere in our daily life, and so that's a huge part of why so many of us are dealing with these like hormonal symptoms or hormonal problems.
100%. And so for me, for many years, I was on the pill and I chose not to get my period. Eventually, I was just so disconnected. Okay. um, and I did talk more about that in the episode of cycle syncing. So
Mhm.
if you want to hear more about that, go listen to that episode. But when I did choose to get my period, I was like, well, what's the point of birth control then? Like I was only using it to really not have a period. So then I just completely got off, got myself clean. I was like, okay. And I wasn't noticing much fluctuation at the time. And it wasn't until I delivered my son, I had my first baby, that now I'm so much more aware of my
Mhm.
different fluctuations. And I'm like, oh, yeah, this is coming, or I know it's coming up ahead. And it's so much more fun now because I can really see it. And I feel for all the women that do have like PCOS and
Mhm.
have some really bad acne or weight gain or whatever comes up for them or mood swings. And, if we don't think about what we're consuming, with our eyes, with our mouth, with our ears, then how do you ever really know how to really support yourself? So I love that, seed cycling is one of those things where you don't have to like overstretch yourself an arm or a leg. It's really simple, but I will say it can sometimes be hard to find, the specific seeds and in enough supply because how much, so break it down for us. Like, how much of these seeds do we have to have? Is it every day, like once a week? How does that work to make sure
So
that it's actually working?
yes. So the rundown of seed cycling is going to be basically a tablespoon of each blend. So basically, again, the first half of your cycle. So basically, the first half means from your period to ovulation. That would be 1 tablespoon of flax, 1 tablespoon of pumpkin seeds, and then you'd be switching over to the second half. So ovulation, when you confirm that, which is the main event of your menstrual cycle, you're switching over to 1 tablespoon of sesame and 1 tablespoon sunflower seeds. So what my company does is a huge thing, a huge misconception about seed cycling is that well, the big problem with seed cycling is a lot of people will do it with whole seeds. Not that this is a huge problem, but in terms of getting benefits, it's not always going to be that beneficial because whole seeds are very hard to properly digest and break down. This is going to sound gross, but a lot of people don't, kind of put the comparison of when you go to the bathroom and you see a whole seed, like that means it hasn't been able to like break down. Again, when the inside of the shell is where you're getting those minerals, where you're getting magnesium, the zinc, the iron, selenium, all those nutrients that are going to help with balancing your hormones. And if we're consuming whole seeds, there's not really going to be any point. And especially flax and sesame are big ones. Flax particularly, that one's not ground. That one's very, very hard to digest. But that's what we do is we do freshly grinding in small batches. So that's going to be really important to make sure that you're going to be able to absorb the nutrients. But also, a lot of people deal with gut issues who sometimes just consume whole seeds all the time. So that can be really a lot easier on your digestion and just ease just kind of avoid all the stomach problems you could have if you're consuming those whole seeds every day. But yeah, as far as the serving, it's 1 tablespoon of each blend, or 2 tablespoons particular seed blend, depending on where you are in your cycle. And you're doing this for for the minimum about seed cycling, people always ask like, how long does it take to see full effects? It can take 1 month for some people, but a lot of people can take a minimum of 30 months. And I say that because a lot of the times in research, it does say it takes 90 days for an egg to mature. So if an egg takes 90 days to mature, a lot of hormonal improvements can sometimes take the maximum amount of time too. Think irregular cycles, hormonal acne, kind of the ones that can take a few cycles. Mood and bloating and period pain can sometimes be a little bit more eased in like the first couple months, but definitely with cycle irregularity and also hormonal acne, those are big ones that can take at least like 3 months to see full. So that's something I always tell people who ask that is a common question.
You guys, I am so grateful for how our community has been growing here that I decided to put together a weekly Elevate Your Life newsletter. This means every Tuesday, just like the podcast, you're going to receive an email in your inbox that is going to light you up, fuel your soul, and give you something yummy to digest alongside your coffee. This will include podcast updates, weekly reflections that are going to help guide you in your day or for your week, and of course, favorite finds that are making my life easier and more convenient. Let's face it, life as a mom is crazy, okay? Not to mention all the other duties we have on top. So if there's things that I've found that are making my life easier, I'm 100% going to be sharing them with you. So if that's you and you want to stay in the loop on all things podcast, things we have going on here, favorite finds, and juicy reflections, go to the show notes below to sign up to receive the first one this week. Love you all. Yeah, absolutely. Even for myself. And I thought what you said was so interesting that you could be eating the seeds. Like I would put pumpkin seeds in my, yogurt bowl, and you will not be absorbing it the same had it be in a blend. So it's very interesting. So my son actually is obsessed with pumpkin seeds, and every time I take out the bag, he's like, give me more. Mas, yeah, so cute. And so I'll give him, as much as he wants because it's pumpkin seeds, and nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
And then I noticed the next 2, 3 days, he's literally pumping out full pumpkin seeds on the back end. And I go, that was pointless.
Right? I know. It's so gross, but people always ask, like, what do you mean by that? I'm like, okay, well, I guess I'll just tell you exactly what I'm trying to say. So, yeah.
Yes, so it's 100% true. So I then
Mhm.
realized that there was
Yeah.
no nutritional benefit to him eating because they're just going to be like flushing right through him.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I love that you recognize that and you have these seed
Yeah.
cycling kits that are just make it so easy. And you just take a scoop, put it in your smoothie, your bowl, whatever. Do you have like a area on your website where you have recipes
Oh
for
yeah.
people to get creative, right? If you
Yeah.
don't know what to do, you get kind of bored of the same thing every day.
Yes, that's the big thing is that I do, especially on my Instagram, I usually do about like one recipe a week. For a while there, I was doing like two or three. There's a ton of recipes on there, my Instagram highlights, and also my blog. I do have recipes there too. But I always say, so for people who struggle doing seed cycling, a lot of the times, or if you're not someone who likes to like make recipes, some people just don't. They're like, I'm more of like a throw it in my yogurt kind of girl. I'm more of the person who throws in like my oatmeal, like my overnight oats, like something that's kind of fast on the go or like avocado toast. Do that because I always, if you're going to do seed cycling, you definitely need a plan of some sort. Like, plan sounds very rigid, but just some sort of way that like, how am I going to get these in if I'm going to start doing it? And I know for me, I would sprinkle it on my yogurt. So that's what I eat every day. And it's like a very simple step to add on top. And they're very flavor neutral. They go with everything. So it's going to be super easy to get them in your diet every single day. But yes, recipes are great to add in, especially if you make like energy bites. I have a lot of energy bite recipes. And so when you do them, you make them on Sunday, for example, you'll have like a whole batch of them for the entire week and you can add them in your meals. So super easy.
Oh my God, that gave me so many ideas.
Yeah.
And it's funny, I just bought a new batch of dates, like meningel dates,
Yeah.
which are one of my favorite things to add to energy bites. So I'm gonna do that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I have so many even, yeah, on my Instagram particularly, I have a lot of recent recipes with those. But yeah, it's super easy. You just like mix them with the seeds and like choose like nut butters, things like that. So yeah, and then you have them for the whole week and then it's super simple. Just like pop one, in your mouth every single day. So it's super easy.
Yeah.
But
So I'd love for you to talk about, we spoke on the specific, there's four seeds, right? There's
yeah.
two per the phases, like two for the first half of the phase and the second half of the phase. But I'm curious why these specific seeds over all the other ones. I don't know if you can speak on that specifically, but I'm curious to know why each of these seeds.
Yeah. So basically the first half of your cycle. So when we try to kind of get in to the menstrual cycle and understand what's happening, that's when all the pieces really connect together. So period ovulation when estrogen's rising. So basically the day you get your period, when it ends, estrogen starts to climb. That's your follicular phase. And so all of the timing, we want to make sure we're supporting this certain phase of our cycle with estrogen. That's when estrogen's the main hormone. So lignans and phytoestrogens particularly are these substances that are found in flaxseed that really helps metabolize estrogen. So it's me really great for making sure that you are having enough estrogen in your body. So you have that, amount to help thicken the uterine lining for ovulation, which is that main event that's coming up. But it's also gonna be super helpful for excreting any excess estrogen as well, as a lot of women who deal with PMS and period pain, all those things in their luteal phase, which is before their period starts, the PMS zone. This is typically because we have too much estrogen in our body. So I want to make sure we're excreting that as well. But particularly in the first half of your cycle, again, estrogen is that main hormone. So lignans and phytoestrogens found in the flax are really helpful there. Another seed also is the pumpkin seed. So that's going to have zinc in there, really high in zinc, which is super great for PCOS. There's also been I mentioned PCOS a lot with seed cycling because there has been a really great research study. There's been a couple with how 3 months of doing seed cycling can be super helpful with like symptoms related to PCOS. So like hormonal acne can be irregular cycles, anovulatory cycles, and like facial hair. All those things are kind of related to PCOS. So seed cycling is wonderful for that. But the zinc is a great mineral that is going to help not only support those androgen levels in your body, but help support ovulation, which again, I mentioned ovulation a lot because one of those phases of your cycle that a lot of people think it's the period that's the most important, but really ovulation is when egg is released from your ovaries. So it's the time where you can get pregnant, really important time frame. And this is going to be having a lot of health benefits. So I always say if you're not ovulating, you're not going to be able to produce progesterone, which is, again, that second main hormone of your menstrual cycle, which is responsible for so many things like reducing irritability, reducing mood swings, reducing anxiety, sadness, all of those things a lot of us deal with. Progesterone is literally the chill hormone. So again, ovulation, I mentioned that a lot when we talk about the first phase of the cycle because it's just a really important event that we want to make sure happens. So those are basically the two benefits. There's also omega-3s that are obviously really high in flax. Omega-3s are really important that a lot of us know about. It's a really important fatty acid that helps decrease inflammation in the body. So that's going to be high in this blend as well, along with iron that helps replenish red blood cells. And I always say for people who are iron deficient in seed cycling, these blends are very high in iron. However, just because my background's in nutrition, I'm always so weird to like give this straight up facts, which is like to make sure you're pairing with vitamin C, because plant-based iron is not going to be as best absorbed in the body like heme iron. So animal-based iron, think like steak, those red meats, chicken, all those things are going to be higher in iron than a plant-based iron, because plant-based are non-heme. So pairing with vitamin C actually helps increase iron absorption. So add like oranges or something on your yogurt, or throw it with some like berries or something and like your overnight oats, something like that. Don't think about it too hard, but I would just say people who are iron deficient, that could be something that's going to help promote the iron absorption better, as it's really important to replenish red blood cells here. And the second half of your cycle is going to be ovulation, again, to your next period. So everyone's day they ovulate is going to be different. It's about 13 to 15 days before their next period. But again, everyone's kind of different when it happens. There's so many things you can talk about how to confirm ovulation, but that would take me so long to talk about. But like basal body temperature, like confirming, that's a great way. An egg white consistency when you go to the bathroom, so for your discharge, is another sign to know if you're ovulating as well that you get. And so your body just sends you all these cues. That's where cycle syncing is so great, because you're kind of understanding where you are and just creates a lot more intention kind of how you live your life. But that's a really important thing to know when you know if you're ovulating or not. But so basically, the sesame and sunflower seeds are going to be those main seeds that are consumed here to support progesterone that is rising after you ovulate. So with progesterone, we want to make sure to support this hormone. And we have 3 specific nutrients. So we want to make sure we have selenium, we want to make sure we have B6, and also vitamin E, as these are all really targeting progesterone production. They are all research backed to help support progesterone. So these are going to be high in these particular seeds compared to other seeds that are out there, like in grocery stores. So that's something important to note. And there's also going to be the selenium is also really important for supporting the liver. So we mentioned that a little bit in the beginning about how a lot of us have a lot of, livers that could really need a little bit more care, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
All the toxins in our life and things like that. So selenium's a really great one to help support metabolism. It helps support liver detox just naturally. Again, like no detox teas. All you need is really those micronutrients, so vitamins and minerals, that are going to help support your body and help support those functions that your body does naturally. So selenium's really important for that. Also for thyroid health. So if you have hypothyroid, selenium's really great for that. Vitamin E is also actually research back to help with like breast tenderness, which is super cool, vitamin E and B6. So a lot of women do notice that like pretty soon with seed cycling. That is when I do hear more, especially women who get like really like a lot of swelling before their period. That's again a sign of like too much estrogen in the body. So making sure we're supporting our progesterone levels here is really important. Energy is typically lower in the luteal phase, which again is after ovulation, before the period. And with all those, or with B vitamins are really crucial for supporting energy. So that's a really great thing to know. Mood swings is also a very big complaint in the luteal phase, and with certain types of seeds that help with that is sesame and sunflower too, due to them also being high in B vitamins, but particularly the B6 helps produce like happy neurotransmitters like serotonin and dopamine, and due to progesterone being able to be produced due to these nutrients as well. Progesterone, again, like I talked about kind of the first half of the cycle already, it's going to help produce GABA, which is basically a neurotransmitter that's really helpful for obviously that calming effect. So this is why progesterone's HL hormone. So I always say, if you want to know if you're producing enough progesterone, really take note and start like journaling like how you are in your luteal phase. So before your period, if you're dealing with like breast tenderness or really awful mood swings, struggle with sleeping, that's a big one too. It's correlated with low progesterone. Definitely all symptoms that seed cycling could really help support. So that's like all of it in a nutshell. It's a little bit of a lot to take in, but I wanted to like briefly run down each one. So
I didn't know before. Like I understood, okay, I know that pumpkin seeds have like a really high protein count and that's about it.
yeah, and that's true.
That was the
Yeah.
basis of my understanding.
Mhm.
And really what just came to me was that, as many women for many years will take a pill to suppress their hormones.
Yeah.
A daily tablespoon of
Yeah.
your seed blend is a way to support your hormones.
Yeah.
And so just, for many women that are like, oh, one more thing into my day. Well, you take a pill for so
That's-
many things in your life.
Yeah.
Instead of a pill, this is a tablespoon, and you can add it to a variety of things. And so, that to me just makes it so much easier to conceptualize, and a way to like add it into your lifestyle as a new habit, because that's really what it is, especially
Yeah.
for the amount of time that's going to take to see those results. Just make it a new habit. It's just part of your day, part of your eating, just part of what you do, right? And so that brings me to my next question. Let's say you fall off track, which it's inevitable. It'll happen. You'll forget, to bring your kit with you when you're on vacation or traveling somewhere or whatever the case may be. Um, what is your best tips for women to get back on track?
So the best tips to getting on track is, well, I was going to kind of pitch my bar because that's going to bars because some people do struggle with seed cycling. My biggest tips again to get back on track is kind of what I said at the beginning is to add it on top of food, or add on to the foods you already eat every day to kind of make it that habit. Another tip is to put it where you can see it in the fridge. This sounds so funny, but it really does help when you put it where you can see it in the fridge. Just like anything, if you like apples instead of candy, like on your kitchen table, like you're probably gonna grab, like you're always gonna grab for whatever's basically sitting on the kitchen table, than whatever's sitting like inside the cabinets. So a lot of people put their seed cycling kit on the side of their fridge so they can't really see it, but put in the front. That has been shown, like people tend to grab it a little bit more. So that's an important one. If you work a lot, like in the office, and you kind of eat most of your meals there, bring your seed cycling kit. That's really important. Maybe just leave it there for 5 days out of the week and try to remember on the weekend. But yeah, making sure it's always with you, and don't stress out about it if you miss a day. The biggest tip also is just to make sure you're increasing the dosage. So I always say if you miss just a couple days, try increasing the dosage like those other 2 days. So if you only miss one day, for example, like you consume 2 tablespoons every day, you're consuming 4 tablespoons the next day. So that's a really easy way to make sure you're getting all the seeds for that entire month. But yeah, don't freak out if you don't seed cycle. It is important because I always say it is a food first approach. So you don't want to be slacking on it too much. But because again, it's not going to be like you're taking a pill. It's something that's more gentle on your body. So consistency is really important to it. That's also kind of why I create a bar as well. So it's basically the same kind of approach. It's definitely different from seed cycling, but it's the same food first approach to support your hormones, has majority of the same seeds, and the bar is along with more superfood ingredients like ginger, etc. But that's another easy way is to eat a bar the day maybe you're like, oh, like I'm traveling, I'm going on a plane, like it's just a grab and go. So there's more options. It's kind of what like my company's all about, is just to create more options for people to be able to support their bodies more naturally, conveniently, and to also have pleasure in doing it. So it's like enjoyable.
I love that. Those are some really good tips. So let's switch gears and talk about your company and the story behind it, because you went from being, I mean, you still are a nutritional health coach, right?
Mhm.
And to starting your own company to support many women that experience this, not just the clients that you support. So I'd love for you to share that story, because, many of our listeners here, they do have passions within, and potential businesses that they want to start. And I think it's really powerful to hear another woman's story, and going from a thought and a feeling and knowing to then, the reality.
Yeah. So when I started coaching, it was actually when I was working full time at a school district. So it was like my outlet to really kind of pour more creativity. When I was working at a school, I did more, and a lot of people can relate to this. I loved what I did a ton. Because I did a lot of like the menu planning for the next year, like worked with like special diets. So people like puree diets with like allergens, things like that. So I love that a ton. But working in a school district and with nutrition, it's kind of like you're in a box. That was the hardest part because people kind of pick up when they talk to me. It's very like not out there, but I definitely have like a ton of ideas. Like it's very, even just when you look at like the ingredients at the bar, like people kind of like pin together like, oh, I can see kind of why you struggle maybe doing that. But that was the hardest part, was I couldn't feel like I really could completely transform like a menu, because you have so many restrictions when you kind of work under those guidelines in a school. So that was kind of my outlet on the side, was doing coaching, and I enjoyed it so much. But there was something inside of me when I started doing coaching. I knew not that I loved what I did, but it was something that I felt like I just had this urge that I had to do something a lot bigger and something where um, I want to work with food. Again, when you coach with clients, sure, you're talking about food, but it's different when you're working, you're creating food, formulating food, like putting something new into the world. And I always was someone who loved going to the grocery store, checking out different products. Like I was that like, weirdo who was always like, oh, look at this like new brand. Like I was always into that. But because I think I kind of submerged myself in that like CPG space, like consumer packaged goods, like all the new products and things like that, I always kind of had in the back of my head, like, oh, this would be really cool. Like, I don't even know what I would do. Like, I don't even know what I would do, but I don't even know the steps. Like, I'm not meant for this. Like, everyone has those thoughts because the food industry is just so different. But that's really what happened was I always thought I was going to do coaching while working or creating a juice bar. My husband and I don't even think I talked to you about this when we talked we talked last week or whatever. But
Yeah.
I think it was like 4 or 5 years ago, my husband and I wanted to do like a juice bar when he got out of the military, which would be this year, which is funny, kind of combining everything. Because I grew up like working at juice bars in college. Like I did a lot of shift leading experiences. I just loved kind of working in like a startup juice bar. So I always thought I would do something like that with coaching with it, but I didn't feel like I wanted, to do both of those things. And kind of piggybacking off of that, I knew when I looked into like the CPG space and the bars and everything like that, I was like, I really want to create something that's centered more toward women's health. And because in my clients, I started to get a lot of the repeat hormonal symptom like pattern, and people just wanted a food first approach. That was the biggest. I think everyone, when they kind of dive into something, you hear something either from like a client or you hear something from like a family member that kind of makes you like, okay, like I'm gonna do this now. Mine was when I had a client that said, there's nothing on the market that's like food, because basically my clients, I gave her like supplements like pills to take,
Mhm.
and she hated how like she like when you go to the bathroom after you take a supplement, it's always like yellow. So she's like, oh, I hate when I take a supplement that's always yellow and I feel like I'm not really absorbing the nutrients. I'm like, hey, you're actually right. It's very true. Pills and supplements are absorbed completely different than real food. So that was when I started actually like think about, okay, like, you know,
What can I do here?
yeah, what can I do with food? Exactly. Like one on one with food, bringing the nutrition component, bringing the food industry component, bringing the women's health component and like hormone health component into it. And then I basically all I did was I started seed cycling myself and doing with clients, and I just started getting like bulk white bags and stickers for them, and I just started combining it with my coaching programs. I just did it together. So a lot of people start off that way too, kind of like bridging like a smaller, product. If for example, you're that person who's kind of wanting to build like a product or something like that, maybe combine with what you're already doing, and kind of see how it goes. That's what I did. Is I didn't really leave the coaching right away. I was trying to see again how other people were responding to seed cycling. I didn't want to jump into something if I didn't know other people were getting benefit, because a lot of people say like, oh, I'm my own testimonial, like it's great, but you want to make sure other people want it, because that's definitely something people can take as like a big tip, is because before you jump into something, like don't let go of what you're already doing to make an income, but also make sure you're stepping, in that other space you want to work in. Because for me, when I started doing that, like I did it, it was a very easily conversion. I just kind of got my food cottage operator license, which was for my apartment in San Clemente, and started grinding my seeds there, shipping them out to clients. I started doing a farmer's market in early 2022 in Dana Point, this local farmer's market, and started just sell them there, and kind of started to realize like who my target market was. And basically like rolling the whole story, I started noticing also a lot of people were perimenopause, women who were older. I started seeing kind of what the demographic was, who was buying it, and also what, maybe were like, not the problems of seed cycling, but maybe what a second product line would be, in terms of making it easier for people. And that's kind of where the bar idea came from as well. With basically, it's a multivitamin protein bar in one, for those who don't know. But a lot of people wanted a way to support their hormones that was a little more grab and go, for those who may not want to add seeds on food. I don't think it's hard, but a lot of people think it's hard. So it was something I was like, I want to please those people too. So yeah, I would say a big thing on my story was kind of, just diving into it kind of right where I was, and just knowing that, if if I started kind of selling it, I would see kind of where it would go while I still had my hands in my coaching.
The name of your company also has a really
Yeah.
special meaning. Can you share with us the meaning of that?
Yeah, it does. So basically, my last name is Julia Kormansky Miller. I was married, so it's where the Miller came from. And Kormansky came from obviously my maiden last name. So it's called Manski's Wellness. And so a big part of my company, also with it being so focused on like functional health and empowering people to like be their own, advocates for their own health. That's something that's really passionate. Something I'm really passionate about because when I was 13, my dad passed away from like a blood clot, so it was kind of a huge thing. It was something that like was not supposed to happen. He was like very healthy person, but that's something that kind of made my mark with knowing that like I kind of always knew I wanted to like create something to not forget the problem, but kind of be his voice and like not warning people, but just kind of realizing that, hey, it's important. We want to make sure we aren't just letting ourselves to, our doctors and things like that to make our decisions all the time and to know something's okay, listening to your body, like all those things are things I adapted at a very young age. But that all was something that benefited me because I know in functional health, that's like the number one thing is preventative medicine, we need conventional medicine. But it's just something I knew that, if that happened from labs being normal, this happens on lower, scales, like people with hormone health issues, having labs as seem normal, all of those things, but they really are, and you could be suffering with something bigger than it was just something that, is really important to me. I felt like it was very fitting for this type of company. So that's a little about the background, but my dad was such an important role in my life. So that also was a big reason why I put it in my business.
Mm. I have a special relationship with my dad as well, and that
Yeah.
rings true for me as well. Um, Going back to the bars for a moment, I didn't get a chance to comment on that. I love granola bars. It's like you said, the easy grab and go,
Yeah.
snack, whether you have a busy day, you're going to be out all day, you have back-to-back meetings, you need to get something in quick. Even for the kids sometimes, if something's going to be perishable, traveling, all the things. And the hardest thing I find when looking for a bar is amount of sugar that is in bars. It's such a turnoff that I end up not having bars and have to figure things out, and it makes my life that much harder. So, talk to us a bit about that within your bars and how you contradicted all of the other ones out there that just load load up on sugar.
Yeah. So the big thing with that is I'm a real quality over quantity kind of person. I definitely attract the people who are like ingredients first type of people. I
Yeah.
definitely felt like who my market was. So when I created the bar, I didn't want something with natural flavors, sugar alcohols, artificial sweeteners, corn syrup, like sugar, all the forms of sugar. There's always like 20 different ways to say sugar on an ingredient label that a lot of people don't know. But anything that, isn't, when you look at a nutrition label, it says added sugars, usually a no if it's like over 20 grams. But that was when I knew I wanted to create a bar that it's kind of obviously like our X bar is being sweetened with date. But date's really important, obviously, for using food as medicine. It's high in folate. And it's also actually really great for women who are pregnant because it can actually help like ease labor. I'm sure you've heard of that. Yeah, a lot of people had kids are like, yes, I know the date thing.
Yes, I used it, and I mean, look,
Yeah,
I did
yeah,
all the things, so I like
yeah,
to say they all worked,
yeah,
okay? But yeah,
yeah.
it's real.
Yeah, exactly. It's real. So that's a big thing with the dates is I wanted to use that as the sweetener because something that's again not only be beneficial for having those micronutrients, but it's also going to be higher in fiber. So with our labels and things like that, I always wanted to create the label like the ingredients first kind of focus, but I also wanted to be really high in fiber and high in protein. Those are the two nutrients I always tell people to look at is like protein. Sure, your sugars you should look at, but you want to make sure it's more coming from a real source. You just don't want those added
Mhm.
sugars. But make sure it's higher in fiber, so like over 4 grams, in a protein bar that's going to be over 10 grams. So that's kind of how the bar was formulated. It doesn't have, again, any of the natural flavors, any of the sugar, artificial sweeteners, sugar alcohols, but it's also going to have nutrients. Like if you look at the ingredients, it's not going to have any similar ingredients that other bars have. So we actually flavor our bars with like real fruit and freeze dried fruit powders. So those are going to be super high in nutrients compared to putting like natural flavors into a bar, and just kind of using like dates as like the sweetener, I would say. And it's
Mhm.
also going to have spices. So that was a big part is to have a bar that's going to be beneficial for hormone health and have all these health benefits, I really want to make sure everything was very research backed and having the same, like a certain amount of dosage into every single bar to make sure it's supportive. So every bar is 1,000 milligrams of ginger, which is really great for like period pain, also morning sickness, like nausea, migraines, all those things. And it's also going to have like grass-fed collagen, which is another difference from the bars on the market. Is a lot of them use the same proteins, like pea protein, whey protein. None of these are bad proteins, but are not really like the best quality either. And grass-fed collagen, in terms of women's health, is so important because grass-fed collagen helps repair the gut lining. Is super great for helping with digestion. It's great for even joint mobility. It's great for people who work out, women who are older, trying to combat like osteoporosis. Definitely a protein that was like, this has to be in like this bar line. So we do use grass-fed collagen, and it's also going to have cashews, Brazil nuts for selenium. So the whole Brazil nut a day, I don't know if anyone knows about this, but it's basically a daily dosage of selenium. So we have a Brazil nut in every single bar too. And kind of to sum everything up, every single bar is also going to be kind of made with different phases in mind. So you do not have to consume them. Some people are like, oh, I have to consume like this bar at this time. You definitely don't have to. They all have the same micronutrient medicine, I like to call it. So they all have the same
Mhm.
base of,
Right.
Brazil nuts, ginger, cashews, dates, hemp seeds for omega-3, all of those, which means you're going to have support with every single bar. But as far as the flavor profiles, each bar is going to have like a different vibe. I like to call it. So like
Yeah.
one is going to be like menstruation. So the first 5 days of your cycle, but you can consume it any time. That one's going to be like a chai spice flavor. This one tastes like pumpkin to some people just because it has like the ginger flavor, the clove, the cinnamon, the turmeric. Turmeric is another really great spice to have about 600 milligrams of there in those bars. And also it's going to have like coconut flakes, some pineapple powder too. And then there's the second bar. It's going to be like a cherry berry. That one's made with like the follicular phase in mind. So again, supporting estrogen, pomegranate. We don't use flax in these bars because flax is just really bad for shelf life purposes in terms of like creating a bar that's going to last like a little bit longer. So we decided to put like pomegranate in it. Pomegranate's a really great fruit. It's actually very similar to flax with the phytoestrogen component, which we learned a little bit earlier is really supporting estrogen levels. So we use pomegranate in there, and we also put freeze dried pomegranate. I should have touched on that, but so it's a powder form. But we also do goji berries as well, and dried cherries. So dried cherries are also like very high in vitamin A. Goji berries and dried cherries are like high in vitamin C, so a really important nutrient to support ovulation. Also maca powder. So a lot of people know that powder is like a very great adaptogen for
Mhm.
supporting energy and supporting libido. And the last one's going to be the luteal phase bars. After ovulation, before your period, those 2 weeks, similar to the sesame and sunflower blend I talked about earlier. That one has the same seed. So that one is very reflective with the seed cycling. It has the sesame and sunflower, but to give it that flavor, it's going to have like cacao powder. So cacao powder was like an obvious add-in for this one because it's like a kind of like a nutty cacao flavor profile. So the cacao powder is great for supporting progesterone, also helping with mood because the magnesium being higher. And it's also going to be higher in iron as well. It has those progesterone supporting nutrients that we talked about earlier. That's a little brief little rundown on them.
Amazing. And I was also thinking how these bars would even support women that are breastfeeding and need to keep their calorie intake super high.
Mm-hmm.
So
True.
this could even support, yeah, mamas during pregnancy, hungry all the time, or
Yeah.
mamas breastfeeding, again, hungry all the time.
Exactly. Yeah, and that's a big thing is these bars are packed with nutrients. I always say that. These bars are really packed with stuff. So they are very filling. They're like a 250 to 300 calorie bar. So they're very like a filling snack. That was always my approach, was to get the micronutrient profile down, and then so I'm
From
more
there, you can have fun with it.
yeah, I'm like, we're gonna make sure, like, because if I'm gonna label something as a nutrient bar, it's gonna be filled with
Mm.
all these foods. I'm not gonna be skimpy on it. I want to make sure everyone gets a good. So it's very filling, great for breastfeeding mom. It's great for pregnancy as well.
Julia, share with us, where can our listeners and our guests find Mansky products and
Yes.
everything? Where can they get their hands on these bars and seed
Yeah.
cycling kits?
Yes, you can get them at manskiswellness.com. So MANSKIS and wellness.com. And my Instagram's manskis underscore wellness too.
Perfect. And before we wrap things up, obviously our show here is all about elevating your life. And so I would love to know, what does elevating your life mean to you?
Means following your purpose 100%. Probably that ties everything together what I said, but when you found your purpose, you definitely feel like you can do anything like in the world. So find that out. Not everyone, I think some people kind of always know what it is, but some people struggle doing it. So do some inner work. I always say like to read some more like personal development books, like kind of start rewiring your brain to start thinking about it. And when you get connected with what that is, it becomes so much easier to elevate your life, I feel like.
So good, and a great way to kick us off into the new year.
Yeah.
You guys, we are so grateful to have had you here. If you love this episode, please share it with a girlfriend that you think would need to know more about seed cycling if she doesn't know already, and you're like, she needs to know about this and to get more educated in the know. Julia, thank you so much for joining us today and sharing with us more all about seed cycling and about your journey in nutritional wellness.
You're so welcome. I'm so glad to be here.